survey for me, okay? So welcome to today's session. You've heard a little bit about me. I am Dr. Shenetta Malkia-Sapp. I am the CEO and broker for the PMs of the City Realty, a full-service brokerage. The PMs of the City is a full-service property management firm and asset management company. I am a certified developer and trainer when it comes to helping individuals grow their mindset, grow their business, and to be successful in their business. Outside of that, I am excited because I'm a mom. My daughter is turning 28. I'm a grandma. My Princess K is turning 2. Well, she'll be 3 next month, y'all. 3. And my grandson he'll be 2 next year. So I've been around for a little bit, and I'm excited to do this workshop for you. You have my contact information on the screen. You're welcome to reach out if you need additional help. We're going to jump right into this, and I hope I'm going the right direction. I was going backwards. Let's go forward. Here we go. Why is knowing how to manage problem residents so important? Well, I've given you some of those things because it affects your mental health. How much time do you think that it takes out of your day when you're dealing with a problematic tenant? A lot or a little bit? Too much? If you could put them, and I was talking to a gentleman when I was downstairs visiting the booths. He said, well, in Texas, we just shoot them. I said, oh. Well, we can't do that. Oh, we don't want to shoot anybody. And it's not going to resolve the problem. Their family's still coming. So what other avenues can we take? So the reason that this is important, the why, you are working to be of service, and the problematic tenants can be very unpleasant. Yes, we get that. It's stressful. It's emotional. It's a strain on you. A lot of times, even your leasing consultants, your virtual assistant sometimes cannot handle the stress that comes with dealing with problematic tenants. How do you feel when somebody's raising and screaming their voice at you? When they call and they say, you did not fix this. This is my 3rd phone call. Like, you just got there at 8:05 in the morning. You said, good morning. They didn't even start with good morning. They just let into it. You put this late rent on my notice on my door, and I paid my rent on time. I paid it this morning, and your office wasn't open, so it shouldn't be late. Man, missed the 8th. It was doing the 5th. Okay? So some of the things that we face, the events can be time-consuming. They most certainly can. They can leave you drained. They can leave you questioning yourself. Anybody questioned yourself after you dealt with a resident? Did I say that? Did I really do that? Did I promise that? Did I under-promise and over-deliver? Did I forget? Do you forget some of the residents? Do you ignore some of the calls when y'all see them on the call ID? Do y'all say I'm not answering the phone? Your turn. Your turn. Oh, there's Miss Sue. It's your turn. Do you understand that by us not answering the phone and ignoring those residents, that it gives them more ammunition to come at us? It makes them more problematic. So what do we do to unlayer some of the things that we have to face? Because we know they're not going away, right? In our business, you said that you signed up to manage properties for owners. You wanted to make them profitable. You wanted to make sure their assets were performing. You were going to do inspections. You were going to handle their lease ups. You want to deal with evictions. Anybody ever give you a problem when you had to deal with an eviction? I had my windows busted out before when I did an eviction. I'm in the DC, Maryland, and Baltimore market. We just opened up in Georgia, and I have some horrendous stories that I may share with you today. I got hit in my head with a cell phone by a resident in a wheelchair. She was a senior. I was talking to Miss Ann. I was talking to her about the fact that you can't leave cigarette butts on the front. Anybody had them type of problems? I don't know about you. Just throw the cigarette butts right out front. I think our porter spent a lot of time just cleaning up cigarette butts for quite a bit of time. And it's like, Miss Ann, we cannot have you throwing the cigarette butts outside of doing all the hair outside and eating the crabs and eating the crabs outside. So my background comes from public housing, Hope 6 properties, and that's a mix of market units, Section 8 units, in-house Section 8, and tax credit properties. So it's a mix of everybody and a couple of homeowners. And so it makes it very different when you're managing these properties because you have different tenants that are on different levels of understanding. So a lot of times when you're dealing with tenants, you have to understand what their life skills are like. Did everybody have all the life skills they needed when they started moving to their first apartment? Did everybody know how to pay rent on time? Did you know how to put a work order in? Did you know what was your responsibility? Did you know, ladies, that we couldn't put hair in the drains or the clogging? These are things that a lot of tenants are missing. And some of the problems that we face with tenant comes with education. A lot of times we base things on the fact that they should just read the lease agreement and be an adult and follow the lease agreement. That would make sense, black and white, right? But it doesn't work like that. There's a lot of gray areas for a lot of different people. Sometimes as managers, you don't even like dealing with conflict. How many of you in here are scared of conflict? You don't have to put your hand up, you don't got to tell nobody, but I love the honesty. I love the honesty. Well, see, I'm from New York, so conflict comes with it comes with the territory. You know, I'm in New York. So conflict, I'm hitting it head on. A lot of times when we're dealing with a lot of different situations, we try to avoid it or think that we can minimize it and it's gonna go away and it never goes away, like your tenants. And you really don't want them to go away because that's a part of your income every single month when you collect the rent, right? So we don't want to get rid of the tenants, but we do want to make sure that we're managing them and we're also supporting our team members and ourselves and making sure that our mental health as well. Because you can't manage your tenants, you can't manage your business, you can't manage yourself if you're not mentally well. So understanding the state of the mind of the tenant as well as yourself and going into this process is going to be very important. I recommend that all of you have a mental break room in your office somewhere, or you have a park or somewhere you can go outside and breathe. That's the first tip. After you deal with a problematic tenant, I recommend that you take about 15 minutes to decompress. How many of you taking calls from tenants that are problematic tenants that are back-to-back? Anybody take back-to-back calls? Okay, thank you, say yes. So what do you do after you do with those back-to-back calls? Okay, Sam just let you have it because the maintenance man was supposed to come there and unclog her sink that she put all the hair in. And they didn't do it, or they did do it, and when they came in, they knocked over her touched her pretty towels. They wiped their hands on the pretty towels, and now she's really upset. After that, then you have the next tenant that's gonna call right behind you and fussing at you about a notice that you put on their door for late rent. Then their rent wasn't late, but it really was late. They just didn't realize that you were in the office early and they thought they could get away with something. How about that? So these are some of the things that you have to deal with back to back. But do you realize that if you talk to the next tenant right after you talk to the first tenant, that you may take back those emotions and carry it over? Do you realize that your tenants, when they're calling you, you know that sometimes you are like their therapist? As a property manager, we can be therapists, we can be counselors, we can be social workers, we can be moms, dads, we can be a little bit of everything. But we need to make sure that we set the tone for our tenants in regards to what's expected from them, how we deal with them, how they deal with us, how we communicate. Because a smile can change your whole conversation. Your good morning, the way you answer that phone changes the conversation. The way that we listen will change a conversation, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So I want to do an activity really quickly. You're all already at table, so this is great. So I want to evaluate how you know when a situation is escalating. Do you know when your tenant problems are becoming bigger and bigger? Are you able to identify them and abate those problems early? What are things that you can do? So I want you to you're at your tables right now. I want you to think about one of your problem tenants that you have at your property right now. A couple of questions I want you to think about when you're doing this assessment. How long have they been a problem? What are the concerns that they brought to you? Is this the first time that they brought this concern to you? And what was your solution when they first came to you the first time? And I'm stressing the first time. If you want to talk about that really quickly, take about 2 minutes to think about that, get your stuff together, that's great. I'm going to break this down when you're thinking about the assessment, because what you're trying to figure out right now is when did the problem escalate? Can you de-escalate situations? You hear that a lot of times when you're doing mediation. I have to go to mediation quite a bit for evictions. You know, that's the first step in DC. They make you go to mediation. The owner just wants their money or their property. The tenant wants to stay, and so you do a lot of listening. A lot of listening. And I want you to really think about this. So when does the problem really when do they become a problematic tenant? Can you break this down and avoid them from becoming a problematic tenant? Well, yes, you can. The first thing that you do is when they move in, you have a lease agreement. Yes, everybody has lease agreements, right? They're not handwritten anymore. They're not verbal anymore, right? I still have some landlords that I have to talk to about and say, I know that you told them they could live there, but we need to put it on paper. I don't even know who's living in your house. When it's time for me to have a conversation, they can move anybody in and I don't know what's going on. So the first thing we want to do is we want to give them the lease agreement and give them the community rules, or the property rules, right? So when you go over the rules, you tell me how you handle your move-ins. Do you just give them the document, let them read it, or do you go over and have that conversation, or somebody on your team having a conversation, making sure they understand? That's the first step. Making sure the tenants really understand their obligations and what they're signing up for. Because if they understand at the very beginning, and I tell all my tenants, I will put you out as fast as I move you in. We are heavy on lease enforcement. We do inspections. We expect you to follow through and make your payments on time. And if there's a problem that we need to remedy for you, you can come and reach out to us and we're going to do that. Is that fair? Do we have an understanding on that? When we do move-in inspections, we do walkthroughs of the property. We're not just giving keys and letting somebody walk through. Outside of doing the move-in inspection and you're walking through, we show them. We cut on the walls, just like, see, this is clear, the garbage disposal is empty, there's nothing in there. Make sure nothing goes in there if you don't want to have to spend any money, because we have to charge you back if you're damaged, right? If the tenant damages something, we're gonna charge you back, right? Is that when they become a problem sometimes? You charged me $50 for the sink being clogged. It was like that when I moved in. Y'all never fixed it. Well, I'm gonna go back to my move-in inspection sheet that we both signed off on, and we're gonna talk about it. And then from there, you listen, and we'll talk about that. So, and this assessment is a matter of truly trying to identify when is your problem tenant not a problem tenant, and how you can keep them from becoming a problem tenant, and then how do you recognize that they're becoming a problem? Are they a tenant that's with the same situation every month? Are they a tenant that does not listen? Are they a person that lives in a household that really that's not on a lease agreement, so they didn't understand? Are they an individual that just does not like the rules? A lot of communities, a lot of us are dealing with single family homes, condos. We have a couple of multifamily properties that we oversee as well. But it's no matter if you have one building, two buildings, 1 unit, 5 units. Making sure that tenants understand their obligations so that they don't become problematic tenants for us is very important, and that's step one. That's the very first step. Educating the tenants, that's step number 2. Educate your tenants on how, one, they can save money and don't have to get charges. I start the conversation like this: you like to save money? Who likes to save money? Everybody likes to save money. I want to help you save money. So I need you not to put anything in these drains other than water. I need you to make sure that the kids, I know they tiny, I got grandbabies, y'all already heard me, and I tell them that too. I got babies, my daughter and my grandbabies know, don't put nothing in that toilet. Anybody had to pull up a whole toilet because the child dropped the whole toy inside? I just had to do that the other day. I was mad as all get. I said, do you under the baby again? The second time now, they're becoming a problem. Because it's costing us a lot of money. What makes you say a tenant is a problematic tenant? How much money you spend on the household? How much time you spend resolving those issues? The number of repeated problems that you have to face? How much time you spend in court? Problematic tenants cost money. A lot of it. And if you're anything like that in my market in DC, right now in the last 2 years, they have had a field day. They done showed off. So I tell them, y'all have y'all fun, because when it's time for me to have my fun, I don't want to get no complaints. One of the biggest things that I find in working with problematic tenants is that sometimes that they take a lot of things out on us that has nothing to do with housing. They mad because their boss pissed them off. They're mad because they got personal things going on. A lot of times people are frustrated because they can't pay bills. They can't pay rent. And they're frustrated because you send them a letter asking them when they're going to pay it, and they don't have no clue. Well, they have no more housing assistance money in DC. You call it ERAP, you call them all the Catholic charities, they don't have no money. So people become frustrated. Would you not become frustrated if you had some things to take care of and you couldn't take care of it and you couldn't find a way out? But if you had somebody that you can let in on, like me, I go to the rage room. I recommend that everybody go to the rage room. That's how I get things out. But I understand where tenants are coming from because I used to be a tenant. I remember when I couldn't pay my bills. I remember when I did not have the tools that I needed in my toolkit to be able to communicate. I'm uncomfortable with this. This is becoming more problematic for me. This is having a toll on my health. So when tenants are calling about maintenance concerns, and it's something that's been ongoing, because a lot of properties that we rather acquire are from owners or investors that have had a property management company that has been a little bit more laid back. I'm a hands-on manager. My team is hands-on. We're out there. We're there. We communicate. So those are some of the things that people communicate, and so we wind up getting properties or tenants and households that have distressed maintenance. Maintenance will piss somebody off. When y'all cold and your heat not working, is it a problem?
Yes.
And it gets hot, especially in Texas, because that's where a lot of y'all from. If that AC is not working, is it a problem? Anybody ever get hangry? I get hangry. I like to eat. Residents have those same type of concerns, and they become problematic. So the things that I wanted you to take away from this assessment is what you can do in advance to try to see when a tenant is becoming a problem. Are the problems repeating? Are they paying rent late all the time? Are they constantly putting in work orders for things that they damaged in the home? Are they constantly having concerns and problems with other tenants in the building or in the community? Are they calling the city out to your property and saying that they have all these repairs that are due in the home, but they haven't let you in? These are things that we see, and if we don't address them, they will become very problematic and cost us a lot of money. So how do we fix this? I talked to you about educating the tenant in the beginning, right? I talked to you about making sure you do those walkthroughs and really go through the process with them, make sure they have the tools that they need to be successful at your property. Because all of you are going to manage your properties very different. My pet peeve in a household is if a household is inhabitable, if it's dirty. That's my problem. That is my pet peeve. If I go into a household, it's inhabitable, I don't understand how people are able to live like this. So for me, I have to educate them on that. Because in my lease agreement, it says that your home will be maintained and it'll be habitable. My level of cleanliness is different from your level of cleanliness, and that's fine. But I should be able to walk into a home and there should be no safety and no safety hazards that are causing a problem in a household. The condition of the household should not lead to deferred maintenance because you're not calling things into the office because you don't want anybody to come to your house because you're ashamed of what it looks like, or you don't want anybody to blame you for it. But you got to call it in. So these are the type of things that we want to make sure that we have to resolve in advance. So effective listening. How does this come into effect? Well, you got to listen to your tenants, right? Anybody like listening to tenants? I thought I was going to get at least one. I like listening to some of the tenants. They tell you all their business if they want to. And sometimes it's like a reality TV show. They tell you some good stuff. Listening is the essential component to communication and problem solving. How can you solve any problem if you haven't listened? And I mean, really, we're going to talk about that next, but we're going to talk about active listening. I'm not talking about you listening to the tenant on the phone and you drinking your coffee and you responding on Facebook. I'm not talking about you multitasking, doing emails and talking to the tenant because you're going to miss something. I'm talking about you literally sitting everything down, clearing your section off, and giving that tenant that time that they deserve and they need to be able to communicate their concerns and their problems. Because if you don't give the tenant the time that they need to communicate their problems, they will become the problematic tenant and you will hear those concerns. Whether the letter is going to your boss, your corporate office, to the community, on social media. They didn't fix this. Oh my goodness, now you're dealing with your reputation. Reputation management, because the tenant's out there telling all the bad stuff about you, but they ain't telling what they did, and they're gonna do that. So listening and making sure you break down what you understood. Do you ask them? This is what I heard. Am I stating what your concern is appropriately? Do I understand your need? Understanding the need for your tenants. Listening. Making sure that you can see, because as you're listening to some of your tenants, sometimes you will recognize that the problem they're presenting to you is really not the problem. Not at all. So when they're talking to me about the fact that they made the rental payment and they got the late notice, but the rent wasn't late because they dropped it on the office, but I wasn't there yet, and it's really the day of, and it was supposed to be due 2 or 3 days ago, now I get to listen and say, okay, so now what caused you to drop that rent off like that? And I ask questions because I need to understand. You need to understand the cycle of your rent to your residents' pay. You need to understand that. You want to know when you'll get your rent on time. You want to understand that you screened them when they first moved in. They've been in the property 2 to 3 years. Life could have changed. They may have switched jobs. They may have a job that doesn't pay as much. One person in the household could have lost a job. Understanding exactly what they're dealing with so that you can better help them prepare themselves. So when my residents are always, they were paying rent late, we wanted an organization to go ahead and teach them how to do budgeting. We did a workshop for them. So when we're dealing with problematic tenants and dealing with problematic residents, I look for solutions. We're not just looking for a place where they can dump on you, but we want to get to the solution. So the first step again is that effective is listening for them. So the tools of success, making it look like magic. Y'all want to make some magic for your tenants? Y'all want to make some magic? Y'all go home, y'all sit in now, next time y'all get the next call, you say, okay, I am ready. Y'all want you ready. So listening. Do you have a tenant that constantly makes complaints? Are you writing down these complaints? Are you just brushing them off? Tell me the truth. Y'all do both? Both? Okay, that's good. I like the honesty. When you're listening to your tenants, I just told you that my pet peeve is cleanliness. Do you listen without judgment? Can you listen without judgment? It's so very hard to not judge people, but we can do it. So listening without judgment, understanding. You may think that they should have it by now because they're an adult or they've been living for a certain period of time. You think that they should have it, but they're still growing and learning. Aren't we all still growing and learning? Did we not learn anything this week while you've been here so far? You learned some new things, you take them back to your businesses and apply them. We gotta do the same thing with our tenants. So you're listening without judgment. I'm never approaching a situation with, why are you bothering me with this? Who do you think you are calling me? I just talked to you about this last week. Why are we having the same conversation? I know a lot of managers get into that mindset of, I don't want to hear this. I said it's going to be this way and that's just going to be it. And for some things, it's going to be that. It's going to be that cut and dry. There is no gray area. The lease agreement says this. This is what we've agreed to. This is what you're going to have to do. If that does not work for you, we offer you the opportunity to find housing that fits. Because you have to make sure the individuals understand that they can find housing that really fits them. So being a listener, an active listener, being a proficient listener, you should be able to identify their problem, extended understanding of their problem. Why is it a problem for them? If their problem in their household may be a problem for you because it's going to deal with your expenses and your repairs, right? So we're dealing with a lot with maintenance. A lot of times we're dealing with a lot of maintenance issues. A lot of times we're also dealing with noise complaints. You know, the resident upstairs making too much noise. So how do you handle those situations? Or do you not get involved in them? Well, we do. We send letters because our lease agreement asks for them to be mindful of their neighbors and it calls for them to carry themselves in a certain manner. So yes, we do address that. That can be a problem. If you have a newborn baby, I know when my daughter came home with the baby, she could not have dealt with any noise from anybody else. The baby wasn't sleeping. You know, she was getting an hour's sleep here and there trying to slide it in. It's hard for new families. When you got a family, a household, and there's a lot of running going back and forth. Or even the proper care of the unit itself causes the problem for the residents downstairs. When we talk about inhabitable households, when one person's household is a mess, it becomes a problem for the residents downstairs, then you gotta do extermination for a whole property because of one problem tenant. So we wanna make sure we listen to the tenants, we wanna understand their concerns, and you also wanna address your concerns. You gotta be honest with them, you gotta be transparent. I know I asked you, who in here does not like dealing with conflict? Well, problems are dealing with conflict. You have to be able to address the problem. So if a tenant has come to me, and one of the things that we just recently dealt with were the rent increases. Have anybody, y'all did rent increases this year? Y'all have fun doing rent increases? DC, they put a little stop in our game plan. So they initially told us we could increase 8.9%, then they said you can't increase more than 12% over 2 years, so a lot of landlords were like, but guess what? Can you imagine what an 8% increase on somebody's rent looks like over these last 2 years and dealing with COVID, how that might make them flip out? Now we got a problem with a tenant because they don't understand that in order for us to